In the frozen forests of Finland, during one of the coldest winters of the 20th century, a small, quiet farmer became the deadliest sniper in human history. His name was Simo Häyhä, but the Soviet soldiers who died by his hand knew him by another name, the White Death. What this man accomplished in just 100 days defies belief. 505 confirmed kills. Some estimates put the real number over 800. He fought against an army 50 times larger than his own, survived a shot to the face that should have killed him instantly, and lived to the age of 96. This is his story, and it will leave you speechless. Simo Häyhä was born on the 17th of December 1905 in the small farming village of Rautjärvi in southern Finland, near the Russian border. He was the second of 8 children in a Lutheran farming family. There was nothing extraordinary about his childhood. He grew up working the land, hunting in the forests, skiing through the snow. Finland was a nation of farmers, loggers, and hunters, where harsh winters and dense forests shaped strong, self-reliant people. From childhood, Häyhä learned to ski and shoot. In Finland, these were not hobbies. They were survival skills. The forests provided food through hunting. The snow lasted 8 months of the year, making skiing essential for winter travel.
Young Simo was small. He would grow to only 5 feet 3 inches tall as an adult. But what he lacked in size, he made up for in skill and determination. He joined the Finnish Civil Guard at 17, a voluntary militia organization where Finnish men trained for national defense. This was not unusual. Finland had only gained independence from Russia in 1917, and the threat of Soviet aggression was always present. In the Civil Guard, Häyhä trained rigorously in marksmanship, fieldcraft, and winter warfare. He became an exceptional shot, winning numerous shooting competitions. But still, he was just a farmer. He worked his family's land, went hunting, participated in shooting competitions on weekends. He was quiet, modest, almost invisible in a crowd. Nobody looking at this short, unremarkable man would have imagined he would become the world's deadliest sniper. Everything changed on the 30th of November 1939, when the Soviet Union invaded Finland in what became known as the Winter War. Stalin wanted Finnish territory, particularly the Karelian Isthmus near Leningrad. He assumed Finland would surrender quickly. After all, the Soviet Union had a population of 170 million, compared to Finland's 3.5 million. The Red Army had thousands of tanks, thousands of aircraft, millions of soldiers. Finland had a small army, outdated equipment, and no tanks or aircraft worth mentioning. The world expected Finland to fall within weeks. Stalin planned a victory parade in Helsinki for mid-December. But Stalin had underestimated the Finns. More importantly, he had underestimated men like Simo Häyhä. When the invasion began, Häyhä was 33 years old. He was called up with his Civil Guard unit and sent to the front lines in the Kola sector, some of the most contested territory of the war. This was deep forest, frozen lakes, and temperatures dropping to -40 degrees Celsius. The landscape was a nightmare for the Soviets. Dense woods where their tanks and artillery were useless, deep snow that immobilized their infantry, cold that froze their weapons and killed their soldiers. But for the Finns, this was home. They knew every forest path, every frozen lake, every good defensive position. They knew how to move silently through snow,
how to survive in extreme cold, how to fight in conditions that paralyzed the enemy. And Simo Häyhä knew how to kill. Häyhä was assigned to the 6th Company of the 34th Infantry Regiment. His role was simple: sniper. But what he would accomplish in this role was anything but simple. He operated with a standard-issue Finnish M28-30 rifle, a variant of the Soviet Mosin Nagant. Unlike other snipers, Häyhä refused to use a telescopic scope. He relied only on iron sights, the basic open sights built into the rifle.
Why would the world's greatest sniper refuse to use a scope? Häyhä had several reasons, all of them tactical genius. First, a scope requires the shooter to raise his head higher, making him more visible to the enemy. Second, scopes can fog up or frost over in extreme cold, making them unreliable. Third, scopes reflect sunlight, potentially giving away the sniper's position. Fourth, iron sights were what Häyhä had trained with his entire life. He knew them instinctively, could aim without thinking. His technique was perfection, born from years of hunting and practice. He would find a good position, usually in dense forest with clear lines of sight across open areas where Soviet soldiers would pass. He would pack snow in front of his position to prevent his rifle's muzzle blast from kicking up a cloud of powder that would give away his location. He would put snow in his mouth to prevent his breath from creating visible vapor in the frozen air. He would wait, perfectly still, sometimes for hours, until Soviet soldiers appeared in his sights. Then he would shoot. One shot, one kill. Move position before the Soviets could pinpoint where the shot came from. Repeat, again and again and again, day after day after day. The Soviets quickly realized they had a serious problem. Soldiers were being killed by invisible shots. Patrols would be moving through the forest, and suddenly a man would drop dead. No sound, no indication where the bullet came from. Then another man would fall. Then another. The survivors would panic, fire randomly into the trees, waste ammunition shooting at shadows. Meanwhile, the sniper would be gone, relocated to another position, waiting for the next target. Red Army commanders tried everything to stop Häyhä. They sent counter-sniper teams, expert Soviet marksmen tasked specifically with hunting him down. Häyhä killed them. They sent entire squads to sweep the areas where he operated. He would disappear into the forest, wait until they passed, then resume killing from a different angle. They tried artillery barrages, shelling the forests where they thought he might be hiding. Häyhä would simply move before the shells landed. The Soviets started calling him Belaya Smert, the White Death. They put a bounty on his head. They sent more and more counter-sniper teams. Nothing worked. Soviet soldiers became terrified of the Kola sector. They knew the White Death was out there, invisible, patient, lethal. They started wearing extra layers of clothing, trying to make themselves look bigger, hoping the sniper would mistake them for officers and waste a shot. It did not work. Häyhä could tell an officer by how he moved, how he stood, how others deferred to him. He would wait for the officer, take the shot, watch the command structure collapse. The numbers Häyhä accumulated are almost impossible to believe.
Finnish military records confirm 505 kills with his rifle.
But that number only includes kills that were directly witnessed and confirmed by other Finnish soldiers. Häyhä himself claimed the real number was higher, around 540 kills with his rifle, and another 200 or more with a submachine gun during close combat situations. Even using the conservative official number of 505, the statistics are staggering. The Winter War lasted 105 days. Häyhä achieved these kills in roughly 100 days of active combat. He was sick for a few days early in the war. That means he averaged more than 5 confirmed kills per day, every single day, for over 3 months. In conditions of extreme cold, deep snow, against an enemy that was actively hunting him. For context, the second most deadly sniper in history is also from the Winter War, another Finn named Simo Häyhä, with around 500 kills total. The highest Soviet sniper score of World War II was around 400 kills. The most successful American sniper in history, Chris Kyle, had 160 confirmed kills across multiple deployments in Iraq. Häyhä's achievement stands alone in military history. But the numbers tell only part of the story. What made Häyhä truly exceptional was not just his kill count, it was how he operated. He worked alone, or with just one spotter. He used minimal equipment. He relied on skill, patience, and perfect fieldcraft. He never took unnecessary risks. He never showed off or sought glory. He was a professional doing a job with maximum efficiency. Fellow Finnish soldiers who served with Häyhä remembered him as quiet, modest, almost shy. He did not boast about his kills. He did not collect trophies. After each mission, he would return to his unit, clean his rifle, eat his meal, and prepare for the next day. When asked about his success, he gave simple, practical answers. I practiced a lot. I stayed calm. I took my time with each shot. The Soviet command became obsessed with killing the White Death. They could not afford to let one Finnish sniper demoralize entire battalions. They increased the counter-sniper efforts. They tried to predict his locations and ambush him. They offered enormous rewards to anyone who could kill or capture him. On the 6th of March, 1940, they finally got him. But not through superior tactics or military genius, through sheer volume of fire and luck. A Soviet soldier, probably part of a counter-sniper team, fired an explosive round at Häyhä's position. Accounts differ on whether it was a standard rifle with an explosive bullet or an enemy sniper who got lucky. What matters is that the bullet struck Häyhä directly in the face. The bullet entered his left cheek and exited through his jaw, taking away most of the left side of his face. His jaw was shattered. Teeth were blown out. The impact was so severe that when Finnish soldiers found him, they thought he was dead. Half his face was missing. No one could survive that. But Simo Häyhä was not like other men. He was still breathing. His comrades evacuated him under fire, got him to a field hospital, then transported him to a better facility. He remained unconscious for 11 days. Doctors did not expect him to survive. Even if he did survive, they thought brain damage was certain. The trauma was so severe. On the 13th of March, 1940, exactly 1 week after he was shot, Häyhä regained consciousness. The same day, Finland and the Soviet Union signed a peace treaty ending the Winter War. Häyhä woke up to find the war over, and his face destroyed. The left side of his jaw was gone. His cheek was a mass of scar tissue. He would require multiple surgeries over the following years to reconstruct his face. But he had survived. Against all odds, the White Death lived. And more remarkably, his mind was intact. No brain damage. His memory was perfect. His personality unchanged. He was still Simo Häyhä, just with a face that bore the permanent marks of war. The Winter War ended in a negotiated peace that favored the Soviet Union territorially. Finland lost about 10% of its land, including the Karelian Isthmus. But the war was a moral and tactical victory for Finland. The Soviets had lost between 126,000 and 167,000 men killed, depending on which estimates you believe. The Finns lost 26,000. The Red Army's reputation was shattered. Stalin's military leadership looked incompetent. The performance of the Soviet military during the Winter War was one reason Hitler believed he could successfully invade the Soviet Union in 1941, a calculation that would prove catastrophically wrong. Häyhä was promoted from corporal to second lieutenant during his recovery, an extraordinary jump, but one his service had earned. He received numerous medals and honors, but he never sought publicity. When the war ended and he recovered enough to function, he returned to his farm. He went back to farming, hunting, and living quietly. When World War II expanded and Finland fought alongside Germany against the Soviet Union in the Continuation War from 1941 to 1944, Häyhä did not return to active combat. His injuries prevented it. But he did train other snipers, passing on his techniques and wisdom. After the wars ended, Häyhä lived quietly for another 57 years. He never married, had no children. He ran a successful moose hunting business, taking clients into the forests he knew so well. He avoided publicity, rarely gave interviews, and when he did speak about the war, he was modest and matter-of-fact. He lived in a small house in the countryside, surrounded by the forests where he had fought. In his old age, he would sometimes go shooting, just for practice and pleasure. Even with his mangled face and advanced age, he remained an exceptional shot. Visitors who came to meet him expecting to find a fierce warrior were surprised to meet a gentle, soft-spoken old man who seemed embarrassed by his fame. When reporters asked him how he felt about killing so many men, Häyhä replied simply, "I did what I was told to do as well as I could." He did not glorify war or killing. He saw himself as a soldier who did his duty when his country was invaded. Nothing more, nothing less. Häyhä died on the 1st of April, 2002, at the age of 96. He had lived through the entire century, from the last days of the Russian Empire through Finnish independence, 2 wars with the Soviet Union, the Cold War, and finally to see the Soviet Union collapse and Finland prosper as an independent nation. He died peacefully in a veterans' nursing home, surrounded by caregivers who did not fully understand the magnitude of the quiet old man they were tending. His funeral was a national event in Finland. Military honors, political leaders in attendance, veterans from around the country coming to pay respects. But Häyhä would probably have preferred something simpler, just his friends and neighbors. No fuss, no ceremony. That was his character. The story of Simo Häyhä forces us to reconsider what we think we know about heroes and warriors. We imagine great soldiers as large, physically imposing men with fierce personalities and aggressive temperaments. Häyhä was none of these things. He was 5'3", weighing perhaps 140 pounds. He was quiet, modest, gentle in demeanor. He did not look like a killer. He did not act like a killer. Yet he became the most lethal sniper in human history. What made him so effective? First, skill. Decades of hunting and target practice had made him an absolutely perfect marksman. Second, patience. He could wait motionless for hours for the right shot. Third, discipline. He never took unnecessary risks, never got greedy, always followed proper fieldcraft. Fourth, intimate knowledge of his environment. He was fighting in forests he had hunted since childhood, in weather he had experienced all his life, using techniques he had perfected over decades. But perhaps most importantly, he had the right temperament. Sniping is as much a mental game as a physical one. You must control your heartbeat, your breathing, your emotions. You must make split-second decisions under stress. You must live with the knowledge that every shot you take kills a human being, often someone you have watched for minutes or hours through your sights. Many soldiers cannot handle this. They become stressed, make mistakes, suffer psychological breakdown. Häyhä seemed immune to these problems. Accounts describe him as consistently calm, never panicked, never rattled, even when artillery was falling around him. He had an almost supernatural ability to remain focused and effective under extreme pressure. Modern military forces study Häyhä's tactics and techniques. Sniper schools around the world teach the principles he demonstrated: use of terrain, concealment, patience, shot discipline, escape and evasion. His preference for iron sights over scopes is still debated, with some modern snipers arguing he was right about the tactical advantages of simpler equipment in extreme conditions. But beyond the military tactics, Häyhä's story resonates because it is fundamentally a David versus Goliath narrative. One small man with a rifle held off a superpower. A farmer defeated professional soldiers. A country of 3.5 million people fought a country of 170 million to a standstill. These are the stories humans love. The underdog who refuses to quit. The impossible victory. The triumph of skill and will over superior numbers and resources. Finland's survival in the Winter War was a near miracle. By all logic, the Soviet Union should have crushed Finland in weeks. But Finnish soldiers like Häyhä made the cost so high, the fighting so brutal, that Stalin accepted a negotiated peace rather than commit to a prolonged campaign. Every Soviet soldier killed by Häyhä was one more casualty that pushed Soviet leadership toward accepting that conquering Finland would require resources they could not spare, especially with war against Germany looming. In a very real sense, Häyhä and soldiers like him saved their nation. Not because 500 kills changed the mathematical balance of the war. The Soviets had millions of soldiers and could sustain massive casualties. But because the psychological impact of facing an enemy like the White Death broke Soviet morale, disrupted operations, and made commanders question whether victory was worth the cost. Imagine being a Soviet soldier in those frozen forests. You are cold, hungry, exhausted. Your equipment is not designed for this climate. Your commanders are incompetent, sending you on suicide missions. And somewhere out there in the white wilderness is the White Death, invisible, patient, lethal. Your comrades are dying from bullets that come from nowhere. Any moment, you could be next. You have no way to fight back against an enemy you cannot see. This is psychological warfare at its most effective. The fear Häyhä created in Soviet ranks was worth more than his actual kill count. Soviet units operating in his sector became paranoid, ineffective, demoralized. They wasted ammunition shooting at suspected sniper positions. They moved cautiously, bunched together for security, making themselves better targets for artillery and ambushes. They refused to advance into certain areas. One Finnish sniper disrupted operations for thousands of enemy soldiers. The lesson here extends beyond military tactics. In any conflict, military, political, economic, effectiveness is not just about size and resources. Small, highly skilled, highly motivated forces can achieve disproportionate results if they use superior tactics and exploit their advantages. Finland had home terrain advantage, better winter equipment, superior tactics, and most importantly, soldiers who were fighting for their homes and families rather than for a dictator's territorial ambitions. Häyhä embodied this perfectly. He was not fighting for glory, ideology, or conquest. He was fighting because foreign soldiers had invaded his homeland. This gave him a moral clarity and motivation that Soviet conscripts, many of whom did not even know why they were invading Finland, could not match. The story also reminds us about assumptions and appearances. If you had met Simo Häyhä on a street in 1939, you would have seen a short, quiet farmer who looked entirely unremarkable. You would never imagine this man would become the deadliest sniper in history. We judge people by appearance, size, charisma. But true capability often lies beneath the surface, invisible until tested by extreme circumstances. How many other Simo Häyhäs exist in the world? People with extraordinary potential who simply never face circumstances that reveal their capabilities. How many quiet, modest people could achieve remarkable things if pushed by necessity? Häyhä lived 33 years as a farmer before discovering he was potentially the greatest combat sniper who ever lived. His story suggests that human potential is deeper and more widespread than we imagine. There is also something admirable about how Häyhä lived after the war. Many soldiers who experience intense combat struggle with transition to civilian life. They suffer PTSD, addiction, difficulty connecting with others, inability to find purpose in peaceful existence. Häyhä seemingly avoided all this. He went back to farming and hunting. He lived quietly and contentedly for 57 more years. He did not become bitter, did not obsess over the war, did not define himself by his combat service. When asked about the war later in life, he showed no signs of trauma or guilt. He spoke of it as something that needed to be done, that he did well, that was now in the past. This psychological resilience is as remarkable as his combat achievements. How did he kill over 500 men and then return to normal life without apparent psychological damage? Part of it may be generational. People of that era were simply tougher, less prone to psychological breakdown. Part of it may be cultural. Finns are known for resilience and stoicism. Part of it may be personal. Häyhä was simply constituted differently than most people. Or perhaps the explanation is simpler. Häyhä knew he had fought a righteous war. He had not invaded anyone, had not killed civilians, had not committed atrocities. He had defended his homeland against invaders. Every Soviet soldier he killed was a soldier who would have killed Finnish soldiers or civilians if given the chance. There was no moral ambiguity in his actions. This clarity of purpose may have protected him from the guilt and trauma that plague soldiers in more ambiguous conflicts.
The tale of the White Death has been told and retold in Finland and gradually spread worldwide. In Finland, Häyhä is a national hero, taught in schools, commemorated in memorials, held up as an example of Finnish resilience and courage. Songs have been written about him, books published, documentaries filmed. In 2017, on what would have been his 112th birthday, Finland issued a commemorative coin bearing his image. Internationally, he has become a legend in military circles and among firearms enthusiasts. Articles, videos, and books about him circulate continuously. His story appears in discussions of the greatest warriors in history, alongside figures like Audie Murphy, Alvin York, and other legendary combat soldiers. The difference is that Häyhä's story is somehow even more impressive because of his utter lack of pretension or desire for glory. If Hollywood made a movie about Simo Häyhä, audiences would complain it was unrealistic. 505 confirmed kills in 100 days? Surviving a bullet to the face that destroyed half his jaw? Living to age 96? The whole story seems too extreme, too impossible to be true.
Yet every detail is documented, verified, confirmed by military records and eyewitness accounts.
This is what makes historical figures like Häyhä so valuable. They remind us that reality can be stranger, more impressive, more inspiring than fiction. They show us what humans are actually capable of when pushed to extremes. They prove that one person, in the right circumstances with the right skills and mindset, can achieve what seems impossible. In the end, the story of Simo Häyhä is about more than killing or war. It is about excellence, about mastery of craft, about doing what needs to be done with maximum efficiency and minimum fuss. It is about staying calm under pressure, making every shot count, never wasting effort or taking unnecessary risks. These principles apply far beyond the battlefield. The White Death died peacefully in his sleep at age 96, his face forever scarred by war, but his mind and spirit intact. He lived long enough to see his country prosper, to see the Soviet Union collapse, to know that Finland's freedom, which he had helped preserve with his rifle, endured. He died knowing he had done his duty, done it better than anyone else in history, and lived a good life afterwards. What more could any warrior ask? His legacy endures in Finland and beyond, a reminder that in humanity's darkest hours, individuals of extraordinary courage and skill can make a difference, that size does not determine capability, that quiet competence is often more effective than loud bravado, that one person with a rifle and the skill to use it can hold back an army. The legend of the White Death will be told as long as people remember the Winter War and honor those who fight against impossible odds.